Really, all it is, man, is it's really another avenue to provide players, especially down here in Southern Illinois, with exposure through college camps, in the summer tournaments, high school game coverage.
Yeah, trendsetter, whoa, league of my own, it don't get better. No, read what I wrote, I'm a bestseller. Yeah, reach for my goals, hit it dead center, hit it dead center.
All right, folks. Well, welcome to I believe this will be episode 7. We're taping them out of order here, but this is episode 7 of the Diggle's Diamonds podcast. I am, of course, your host, Ben Diggle, joined by my co-host, David Bentley. David, if you would take a bow.
Oh, wow. Happy New
And
Year, everybody.
yeah, absolutely. And we are privileged today to be joined by someone that I have had the privilege of watching kind of build his career in baseball, and it's been really impressive so far. Um, Joining us today is Diego Solares from ScoutConnect down in the St. Louis Metro East area. Diego comes to us originally, played college baseball at Wisconsin Lutheran, where he was a pitcher, and then did some scout work for PBR and moved up to one of their scouting positions, handling the Southern Illinois, and then took his job with the Sports Barn out of the Metro East, and ScoutConnect grew out of that. So very happy. Diego, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
No, man, I appreciate the kind words. I know you and I have known each other for quite some time, dating back to the good old rock days up in Wisconsin.
You know
And
it.
I'm pumped to be on here to talk about some baseball. So appreciate you guys having me.
Absolutely, man. Thrilled you came on. Let's start first. Let's talk about ScoutConnect, because you and I have had some talks, and via my work with Rhino K's, we've been trying to get into some of your events and get our players down there. Uh, Tell us a little bit what the genesis of this was and where you see it going.
Yeah, really, it kind of came out of nowhere, to be honest with you. When I took this job with the Sports Barn crew and all those guys, we didn't really plan anything like this to create something, but we sat down, we kind of started talking about some things, and thought that it was necessary to create a brand of sorts for what we were going to build. So Scout Connect was born. Actually, Jake Depew, who runs Hit Lab for us and is a part of GBA, came up with the name. So I have to give him credit there. But really, all it is, man, is it's really another avenue to provide players, especially down here in Southern Illinois, with exposure through college camps, in the summer tournaments, high school game coverage. It kind of kicked off really this past fall. We ran a college camp where players would come, they'd get a showcase. So like your typical pro style workout. And then afterwards they played an 8-inning simulated game, I think. We had 34 players there, 22 college coaches in attendance. And then we thought that was a pretty big success. So we decided to kind of build off that. This winter we'll run a showcase, more of your traditional, like just indoor showcase, because you can't really have coaches out in the winter. And at that time, the coaches that can be out there are playing. The JUCOs, the NAIAs, the D3s, they're kicking off their season. That's on February 15th at the Sports Barn. And then in the summer, I think we're running 4 or 5 tournaments down here in the Metro East, just simple, 4-game guarantees at a pretty relatively affordable cost on turf fields, trying to get this thing off the ground. So that's kind of our basis. Really, it stemmed from, I've been down here now for 2.5 years. I live in Edwardsville, and there's so many good players down here, and there's so many good players that for a long time nobody really knew who they were. So trying to continue to provide that pipeline of exposure for those dudes is kind of really where all this came from.
And the affordability is what I want to talk about, because I know that's something you've stressed to me in our communications. And just to give everybody an idea, obviously inflation has been a huge issue now for 2.5, 3 years, but I don't think people realize just how hard it has hit the sport of baseball. And the example I always use, I will never forget the first 17U or 18U tournament, whatever it was back in the day, that I booked for the Central Illinois Outlaws. It was a diamond sports tournament in Carbondale. The tournament itself cost $800, and the rooms at the Drury Inn in Marion were $76 a night. And now you see guys paying $5,000 to get into a tournament, and hotel rooms are somewhere between 150 and 200 a night. So the fact that you're focused on affordability to me is just incredible.
Yeah, I mean, for us, like all of our events are $1,000, 4-game guarantee. We play. We're planning on playing Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays. I know that
Which is also huge.
Yeah. No stay to play. So like if you're coming from out of town, you can stay wherever you want. We're not planning on doing gate fees. So like obviously when you get there, you don't have to pay to get in. That's really it. It's just simple. I mean, like I kind of touching on what you're saying. When I was playing baseball, we would play in tournaments for like $600 at a 4-game guarantee. And for various reasons, that's no longer the case, and I get it. But that's just what we're trying to create. Small tournaments, like I think the most teams we have in one of our events is 10, and that's by design. Small competitive tournaments, 4-game guarantees at a relatively affordable price for the families, for the travel teams, for anyone who's coming out to watch the games. Just keep it simple. Really is my main goal.
All right, where do you see this thing going, brother?
I don't know. I'm at the point where I'm just kind of going with it. We're very young in it, but to be honest with you, like the feedback I've gotten, the registrations we've had for our winter showcase on the 15th, we're already at 102 players, and we're a couple days out, like 40 days out. So what we've gotten so far has been positive, but obviously it's a long way to go. I don't know where I want it to go. I don't know where it's going to go. Right now, we're just kind of rolling with it. But so far, I think we've had a lot of positives.
Outstanding. Dave, I'll let you jump in here.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, Diego, about, what's your day-to-day? I know you're on staff at Sports Barn East as a pitching instructor, and now you're running ScoutConnect. I'm sure you got a lot busier. Like, can you just take me through, we're in the holidays still sort of, but say by next week, are you given 3 lessons a day, and in between, you're on your phone doing things with ScoutConnect? Is that kind of what your day is like?
Yeah, so I actually wear a couple different hats for us. Like I do all the ScoutConnect stuff. So like the website, the social media, all that, that's all me. I run all of our youth camps on both Sports Barn. So there's actually a Sports Barn West in Missouri, which is kind of like the OG one. And then the one that just opened up here on the Illinois side, opened up in 2024 in January. So we run like various different youth camps, like hitters clinics, infield clinics, catching clinics. We're actually running a pitching clinic tomorrow with Xander Muth. You guys are familiar with that name?
From Ole Miss?
Yeah. Actually, the Pirates.
Well, yeah, but yeah.
Yes. We ran a holiday camp with Titus Sissel from Missouri, who was drafted by the Diamondbacks in the 4th round last year. So I kind of organize and put together and staff out all of our youth clinics. But like you mentioned, I also do some pitching instruction. It's really not as extensive as it was when I first started. So I actually started doing pitching lessons at the Sports Barn in April when I was not working there full time yet. It was just kind of to make some extra cash and give back. Yeah. I've always enjoyed coaching. When I was in college, I helped out with the travel team up in Wisconsin. My best friend is the athletic director at Westminster Christian up in Elgin, Illinois. And I kind of helped him out from afar this past spring. So that's kind of where the pitching instruction kind of stemmed from. So I'll probably give like 7, 8, 9, maybe 10 pitching lessons a week. It's usually in the afternoons from like 4 to 6 on Monday, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. And it's kind of just a part of my job. I would probably say it takes up the least amount of my time if you were drawing like a pie. But I enjoy it a lot, man. It's fun working with kids anywhere from 9 to 16, 17 years old. It's different for sure, right? But it's a good time. Yeah,
the attention span of your 12-year-old is a little different than your 17-year-old trying to get an offer from college. I mentioned this when we were off air, but what's one of your favorite go-to pitching philosophies. Obviously, when you're given a lesson, if you see an obvious glitch, you got to try to fix it. But what's one or even two of your favorite focuses when you're just talking to a young pitcher about what you want to try to do, kind of in their, in their wind up, their delivery, everything?
I keep it really simple. To be honest with you, like when you asked me that offline, I was thinking about what I was going to say. And my number one, like, top philosophy, especially nowadays, is as bare bones as it be, just put the tiny white baseball over the plate. I think we live in a world, and I'm sure you guys know this, but we live in a world where everybody is enamored with velocity. Everyone's enamored with spin. Everyone's enamored with all the metrics and all this. And I think by the wayside goes the actual art of just putting the ball over the plate. I love stuff. Trust me, I do. Like when I was scouting with PBR and even what I do now, like I will always take guys that have stuff over guys that don't. But you have to put the ball over the plate. Like, the best pitchers all have really good stuff, and they all throw strikes. So I mean, I'll have like 9, 10, 11-year-olds come in and they'll throw like these bullpens, and like their heads are falling off towards the first base side, or like they're grunting on a 60, 65% effort bullpen. And I'm like, guys, we just got to take a step back and realize that if you throw strikes when you're young, the velocity will come as you get older, right? Like I would say most of the lessons that I give are to kids that have never shaven before. They've never hit puberty. They barely even know how to tie their shoes. And we're trying to hit velo when we should really be focusing on throwing strikes and letting the rest come. All that stuff will come. Like, I think one of my biggest takeaways in scouting over the last 3, 4, 5 years has been to kind of really get in on the kids that make it look easy and move easy, even if they're throwing 77 miles an hour as freshmen in high school. Because one kid that was like that was Dominic Vagley at KU. Like, when he was a freshman in high school, he didn't have huge velo, but it came out so good, and he could spin it, and the way his arm worked was so good that as he got older, all he needed to do was hit puberty to throw harder. And I think
Right.
that mentality doesn't stick now with kids. A lot of it sometimes is radar gun, radar gun, radar gun, radar gun. If we just take a step back, the radar gun will come.
Yeah, I agree. Just watching, you mentioned you helped a buddy who's in Elgin. I'm like 12 minutes from Elgin. And I try to catch as many high school games as I can around here. And what I notice is the young fellows that know how to sequence and, like you said, have good control. Those are the ones that are getting people out. The showcases and going on Twitter, like you said, it's all about velo. So I'll see a pitcher come in and he's throwing hard, but he's walking two guys right out of the gate at this top of the inning, and you're getting yourself in trouble. I think, like, your point is key. I think if you can teach sequencing, control, sometimes kids just have control, but you can help them there. But teaching velocity, I think, in my opinion, is the easiest part. Learn how to be a pitcher first. Then, as you said, you get older, you get stronger, you get in the weight room, the velo will come.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, velo's important, right? The way the game's going now, like, especially if you want to play at a high level, it's important. But velo to me is what opens people's eyes, and then what you do with the velo is what will get you recruited, essentially. Like, I've seen a lot of guys that are low 90s that are playing D2 NAIA ball because they can't put the ball in the zone where they have the stuff to play at a higher level.
Speaking of pitching, go ahead, Diggle. Go ahead.
No. Go ahead, Dave. What were you going to say?
I was going to say, speaking of pitching, with you being in Edwardsville, it's hard for us not to bring up the Tigers, Coach Funkhauser. My question is this, and I think you'd have a good vantage and perspective. Is the reason Edwardsville and that area is so good is because your Little League, your travel organizations, which you're involved in, are so well-run, well-oiled machines? Or is it Coach Funkhauser's ability to to teach the game, or a combination of that and those two and maybe something else? Like, why is Edwardsville in that area continue to just pump out great pitching specifically, but great players in general too?
Yeah, it's a culture, man. Like that, it is an absolute culture down here. It's a baseball town, like through and through. If you go to an Edwardsville High School game, it doesn't matter if they're playing O'Fallon or if they're playing a school no one's ever heard of. There's going to be 500 plus people at that game in the stands. They get there early. I would show up to games an hour and a half before, and there's people there already, like ready to go in their seats eating popcorn. It's a culture down here. Funky does a great job. He's the best high school coach in the state. I'm fully confident saying that. But like top down, they care about their JV team. They care about their freshman team. They have the resources to care about that. I don't know how popular middle school baseball really is across the state, but down here in Edwardsville, like Liberty Middle School, they finished it in the Final Four this past year at the state championship. They care about it a bunch. And yeah, I like they run this huge Little Tigers camp every year that's really successful, and Funkhauser runs it. The players run it. It's a culture, and I think that's why from the top, from the bottom up, they're successful. And then once you get to the varsity level, I don't know if you guys have had the privilege of watching Coach Funkhauser work in game, but he never, ever, ever stops coaching. Like from the very first pitch to the end of the game, regardless of what the score is, he's coaching. He probably spends more time talking to his players in the dugout from the third base batter's box than he does doing anything else, like pointing things out that he sees. It is constant instruction, and that's why they're so successful. On top of, obviously, they have really good players, right? You have to have really good players to win.
There's something in the water, too. Yeah.
You take the really good players with premier level coaching, and that's why you win 2 state championships in a row and finish third the year that you don't.
And I can vouch for that. I've known Funky going on 25 years now, and he and I were kind of brought up the same way. Just being able to be mentored by guys like Jay Thompson at Harrisburg and stuff like that. And you're 100% right. Like, it is a culture down there. Their culture is so ingrained down there that they wanted their they turfed their JV field to make sure they could get games in.
Yep.
So just a really, really incredible place. I want to talk to you about showcases, because obviously you have a lot of experience from that with that, going back to your time at PBR, and obviously that's something you're doing at ScoutConnect. It's kind of a two-parter. First off is, you've seen this, and obviously a lot of us have seen this. We've all been to our share of showcases. There's a kid there who you look at and you go, "Oh, buddy, you don't want this. You don't want this information public. Like, don't do this to yourself." But at the same time, you got to kind of see where you fit in. What should a kid know before going to a showcase, and his parents? What should they know before going to a showcase?
Yeah, it's a loaded question, honestly. But
sorry,
truthfully, my biggest piece of advice would be, I would go to a showcase and I would invest that money, because I do think they're important. Like, I'm not just going to sit here and tell you with the PBR background and what I'm doing now that showcases are important from a business perspective. I think for the player, they are important. It's a good way to get out there, to get exposure. I mean, you have a resource like PBR where any college coach in the country can type your name in and basically pull up a LinkedIn profile on who you are, with video, with stats, with a history of everything, with comments, whatever. But I would not go to a showcase if you aren't ready for one. And what I mean by that is, essentially what a showcase is a workout, right? So you're going there to get in front of people, to get a video, but there's also now metrics attached to it, right? And I'm not saying that metrics are everything, because they're not. Like, there's so many good players that don't have great metrics, but they play the game the right way. Like, we're talking about Drew Kleinheider before we started here at Father McGivney. He's going to St. Louis U next year. If he went to a showcase, he wouldn't put up crazy good metrics. But then when you watch the video, you see the barrel accuracy and the hands on the infield and how he plays the game and how his swing really works. And someone that can evaluate at a high level would say that kid can play baseball at a really high level, even though he doesn't have crazy good metrics, right? But for most kids, like, you're going to a showcase to get your numbers, right? And if you are that 5'8", 140-pound kid that has never shaven before, that hasn't hit puberty, that isn't really experienced being in the weight room, that you're not the quickest footed, you don't really throw it that great, the bat kind of swings you because you're just not there yet, right? Maybe you're 14, 15 years old. You're probably better off taking the money you would pay for a showcase and investing it in something like a gym membership, right? Or nutrition, or a weightlifting program, or a hitting training program, or something that's going to help you get to that next level. Because at that point, like, you're not really doing anything for you, right? Unless you do something really, really well. And trust me, again, there are undersized guys and underdeveloped guys physically that are good players, right? That their metrics don't show that, which is why you have to watch the video. You have to go watch them play in game. But that would be my 2 cents, is if you're not ready and you don't have something that you're going to show out with, I probably would use those resources elsewhere to get yourself to that position. Because at one point or another, if you want to play at the next level, you have to have something that you do right, some level of tool, whether it's bat speed, exit velo, batted ball distance, if you're on the mound, velocity, spin, something. But get to that point first and then show it off.
I couldn't agree more, man. And that was my point. Like, you want to make sure that, like, hey, if maybe you don't throw the hardest, my nephew, Cole Yates, perfect example, doesn't have the biggest cannon, but he gets rid of it quick and he can pick it. And that's why he's going to Heartland. And like you said, there's a bunch of kids out there like that, but you want to make sure that you have a tool before you go. Don't just, I think what a lot of these kids think is, hey, I'm going to a showcase this weekend. I'm on my way to playing college baseball. And truth be told, you and I both know this. Heck, there's, anybody who wants to go play college baseball pretty much can these days. There's a landing spot everywhere, but it might not be what you thought that level was. There's a big difference between, the SEC and the USCAA, for example.
Sure.
What about parents? How do we set parents' expectations for a showcase? What should they look for? What should they expect out of a showcase?
I think you kind of have to take it for what it is. I think if you go into a showcase as a player or a parent and you expect that you're going to get a scholarship offer or a bunch of people are going to call you after an event, like, if you're not that top tier 99th percentile type player, that's probably not going to happen. You should go into it with just the expectation of it's a workout. You're going there to get your numbers, to compare yourself to your own progress, to other players your age, and go from there. I would take all the resources you can get from a showcase and use them. Like, nowadays, like, if you go to an event that has TrackMan, like, you can have so much access to your TrackMan portal. You can actually go into your TrackMan portal that you get just by signing up for an event and export that data as a CSV and send it to people. Same with Blast, same with videos. Like, use the resources you get, but don't think that just because you go to something, you're going to get an offer. You may get some interest. You may get some phone calls. You may get some follows on Twitter. You may get some people reaching out to you. That's fine. That's awesome. But you're not going to get a scholarship offer or be the number one player in the state or whatever just because you go to a showcase. There is obviously the component of somebody has to see you playing a game.
Outstanding. Dave, what you got?
Diego, give me one or two of your favorite pitchers in Southern Illinois. I'm not going to name mine. I want to hear yours first. I got some obvious ones that are popping in my head, but give me a couple names you really like. Doesn't have to be senior, could be a sophomore that you've been working with, somewhere.
All right. Well, I will start. The obvious one, and what some people will disagree if Chatham is in Southern Illinois or not.
We can count it.
Cameron Appenzeller is.
Yeah,
Cameron
Appenzeller
is he's very good, and I would expect his name to be called very highly in the draft when July rolls around. But I mean, to be honest with you, the forte around here is the arms. It's pretty unbelievable how many good arms there are. And I'll just rattle. I got a list right here. Drew Winslow at Triad, 6'6", going to Oklahoma State, throws from right here, has been up to 94 with a hammer slider. Joe Chirotto, who is not just a pitcher, by the way. He's got a legitimate chance to be a two-way guy. But as
Outfielder,
competitive
right?
as it, yeah, outfielder, runs a 6'6" with 105 exit velo. He hit a ball 420 feet like 2 weeks ago. Crazy bat speed, can really compete. Gets on the mound. He's low 90s with a hammer slider and a really, really good changeup. Connor Blue at O'Fallon is a guy that I think is really going to pop this year. He's been up to 94, has always spun it really good. Big, strong, physical kid. Austin Musso at Mascuda. Big, strong dude, man. He's 6'2", 200 pounds, broad-shouldered, like kind of how your prototypical next level Power 5 starter looks like. Can really pitch it. Spins 2 really good breaking balls. Has been up to 93. Probably the guy that I'm really interested to see what he looks like coming out of the winter is Brandon Menser at Cesar Valier. Man, he's got a chance to be really, really good one day. It's a really good breaking ball. Small town kid. I went to go watch him play last spring. Like the town that they play their high school in has like one gas station, no traffic lights.
It's right by Red Lake, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, one four-way stop. And he's been up to 93 with a really, really good breaking ball. Dylan Huff is another Chatham kid, uncommitted, 2026, has been up to 91. He may have the best breaking ball of all these guys when it's right. Really good slider. He weighs like 160 pounds. He's an all-conference wide receiver. Chance to be really good. I would say my favorite arm that I don't think anybody knows about down here is a 2027 from Mascuda named Darren Klein. So last year as a freshman, he had like a 1.1 ERA and 50-something innings for Mascuda, and they went to a super sectional. He pitched a 1-0 shutout in the sectional championship to get them to said super sectional. Since then, like at that point, he was pitching at like 77 to 79 miles an hour, just a strike thrower, like polished, 3 pitches in the zone a bunch. He's probably put on, if I had to guess, 30 to 40 pounds since then, and is now like looks like a grown man. 6'1", 6'2", broad-shouldered, big physical kid, really big back. I wouldn't be shocked at all if he's mid to upper 80s by this time next year. And that's a kid that already knows how to pitch and knows how to get guys out and has a track record of getting guys out. And just the physical development and the puberty that he's gone through, he's got a chance to be really, really, really good one day. So I mean, there's like 15 other guys that I could keep going on this list, man. Like the arms down here are very, very good.
Save it.
On one of our earlier, go ahead. Sorry.
Save it. We're going to bring you back for the preseason preview show, so we'll get through all of it. Let's talk about some hitters down there. I know we talked about Kleinheider, but and obviously Chirotto. I always forget how you say it. Chirotto from Edwardsville, or however you say it.
Yep.
What some other hitters we should watch down there? Position guys that you think maybe that don't fit that standard, that don't have the metrics. Like we were talking about.
Sure. And I apologize in advance because I will definitely miss somebody. But Lucas Krebs, shortstop at Edwardsville, going to Illinois. Older brother played at Lindenwood. Good athlete, can pick it. He's got bat speed, strong kid, man. He's gotten a lot better in the last year or so. Like if you would have asked me at this time last year if Lucas Krebs was going to be an Illinois guy, it would have been very fringy for me. I probably would have told you no, but he got stronger. He got after it in the weight room. His defense improved significantly, which I'm sure helps working with Tim Funkhauser in that regard. And he's got a chance to be a really good player at the next level, I think. Brody Landgraf at Columbia has been a guy that's been getting it done for a while. He started for them as a freshman, and they went to state back-to-back years when Don Bagley was in high school. Big, physical, like the definition of your next level, middle of the order bat. He's a left-handed hitter, 6'4", maybe even 6'5", like 220 at this point. He plays basketball too. He's a pretty good basketball player, committed to Creighton. all sorts of juice from the left side. But really, man, the thing that stands out with him is he is a one-of-one human being. The makeup, the personality. Like I was able to spend 4 days in the dugout with him at the future games. It was an absolute joy to be around that kid. He's got a very bright future. Hunter Baugh has been a kid that's played at Edwardsville for some time now, since his freshman year, I believe. Two-way guy. He'll play second base for them this year because Krebs is playing shortstop. I would assume that Hunter will slide over there for his senior season. Good hands, loose arm. He's really interesting to me on the mound. Like, he's been up to 88, and it comes out so good. And if you take one look at him, he's every bit of 150 pounds with a really clean arm. Like, as he continues to get physical, that's going to jump quick. One guy I did not
He's uncommitted too, isn't he? Isn't he?
Uncommitted.
He hasn't committed. Yeah.
Uncommitted. That's a guy that I think is better off waiting for that kind of physical development to come, because when he puts on 10, not if, but when he puts on 10 to 15 pounds, he could be touching 92, 93 pretty easily. One guy that I did not mention that I probably should have as a pitcher, Trevor McClure at Mount Vernon. He's like a legit two-way guy. Shortstop, can swing it, can pick it, 6'9" runner. It is really good on the mound too. It comes out super good. He's not really in full baseball mode right now because he plays basketball, all conference at Mount Vernon as a freshman. But last year for them, he set the school record in stolen bases. I think it was like 31 of 31 stolen bases as a freshman. He can play short. He can play center. He can really spin a breaking ball, has been up to 89. Another talented guy there to keep an eye on. And then two more 2027s. Omar Avalos, we talked about Father McGivney. He started for them every day last year as a freshman. Really good runner. He runs like a 7 flat 60, but it plays like a 6-7 in game. Like the way he gets off the ball on the base pass, the way he gets out of his breaks, his jumps in the outfield. He's a left-handed hitter, so that helps him out, obviously, being closer from a home to first time. It's not the prettiest swing. It really isn't. Like if you looked at it traditionally, you would say, wow, that's not a very good swing. But he's on the barrel all the time. He uses the whole field. He sprays the ball around. It's like your typical leadoff guy, the guy that's going to get in there and not overexpand the strike zone, not going to help the pitcher out, will work his ABs, and then when he gets on base, it's a double. And then if he's really feeling good, then it becomes a triple. So pretty good leadoff hitter there to know, Omar Avalos at Father McGivney. And then Keegan Sipe, who was at O'Fallon. He played every day as a freshman last year at O'Fallon, catcher / first baseman, is now at Triad, which is a 3A school down here that has a pretty good track record of success. Pretty hard to miss Keegan, man. He's 6'1", 6'2", 190, big physical kid. He's got juice. I think he's finally starting to learn how to use his juice. He's at the sports barn all the time, so I have the privilege of watching him take BP and kind of get his work in. And he was kind of a guy that last year was really focused on hitting the ball hard, but hitting it the other way. And with how big he is, with how physical he is, like starting to get into that mentality of pull side, elevating the baseball, trying to go for more of that right field homer juice. And it's kind of starting to come a little bit. He's had a really good offseason. And I would fully expect him to be a guy that produces for Triad regularly as a sophomore. So, the position players, as is probably the case for the majority of the state, like even if you look at the draft in Illinois, the last couple of years, the guys that have really gotten paid are pitchers, because those position players, it's a cold weather state. They don't get as many at-bats. They don't get as many reps. So the pitchers down here are the strength per se, but there are some pretty good position players. And honestly, a lot of them are still uncommitted.
Speaking of uncommitted, let's talk a little bit about what you see in the state of recruiting. Let's bring this home on recruiting and what you see and what your recommendation would be for kids who are still looking for that college fit.
Yeah, recruiting, man, now, like the way it is right now, to me, like it's never been harder for a high school baseball player to actually play college baseball. You could get on a roster spot. Like, listen, I was not the best player coming out of high school. I wasn't. Like, if I was playing high school baseball now and not 6 years ago, I think my recruiting process would have been very difficult because I was not very talented, but I've still found a place to play and was fortunate enough to get some innings under my belt. The way it's going now with the portal, JUCO being such an emphasis, if this new JUCO rule passes where you can go to JUCO for 2 years and be a freshman at the NCAA, the roster limits. If I was giving anybody advice, I would never, ever, ever rule anything out if you really want to play baseball. Because at the end of the day, everybody except for, and I mean, even those Power 4 schools, but everybody is essentially a junior college now. Whether you're an NCAA school, an NAIA school, or a junior college school, you could go there. As messed up as this sounds, you could go there, you could play for 1 year, and then you can, if you tear it up and have a great year, you can just get in the portal and go somewhere else. And that's kind of how it is nowadays. So the impact that has on high school kids is, like, college baseball is a business. These guys that are head coaches, they make their money, they feed their families, they pay their bills by winning, right? And if you don't win, you get replaced. So if I'm a high school guy or a college coach, I would probably lean towards recruiting a 21-year-old that just hit 350 in the Ohio Valley than an 18-year-old that I don't really have a whole lot of track record behind, right? And that's just kind of the harsh reality. So go where you're going to play. Don't rule anything out. Go where you're going to develop if you really want to play. And honestly, my last point would be, ask yourself, like, do you really, really want to play college baseball? Because, like, if you just want to go and be on a roster and make some memories and have a great time, great. There's definitely an opportunity for you there. But if you actually want to play and play at the highest level, understand that it has never been harder for that to be the case. And if you can't even get on the field, like, if you're going somewhere where it's going to be real tough for you to get on the field, but your commitment post is cool and you have a cool graphic and you're playing at a school with a pretty famous logo, it's not really always the most important thing. There's countless examples of guys that went to a Division II, Division III school, they tear it up there, and then, you know, they play there 4 years and then they grad transfer to somewhere else. I think I'm forgetting the conference name, but the conference that has, like, Quincy, UIS, Maryville,
Great Lakes Valley Conference.
Yeah, the GLVC. Their pitcher of the year the last 2 years has transferred to, I think, Louisville and TCU. And I'm pretty sure Louisville had an outfielder last year, a Chicago kid, actually, that was at Quincy for a couple of years and then started for them every day. So that kind of stuff happens. If you're a good player, like, you're going, somebody with synergy, with college leagues, with the Northwoods, the Cape, they'll find you. Just go and play somewhere.
That is, I couldn't have put that any better myself. David, we've touched every base I wanted to touch. You got anything else to bring home, brother?
Final question. Back to Edwardsville, my favorite topic. So you mentioned TCU, you got Tony Eberlin, TCU commit. You've got Tyler Powell, SIUE, Joe Chirado, who none of us know how to pronounce except maybe you, Diego, and Hunter Baugh. Who's going to be Funkhauser's ace? Who's his SP1? Who's starting opening day?
Yeah, it has been, and it always will be. As long as he wears that Tigers uniform, is Joe Chirado. Okay. That's a kid that has pitched in every big game. He's been on varsity since he was a freshman. He's a two-time state champion. Honestly, like, what they did last year, so he went down last year halfway through the season with a shin injury.
I noticed he didn't pitch in the Final Four. Eberlin pitched really well against Providence in that Final Four game, and I assumed he was injured just by looking at the box scores and stuff.
Yeah, so he went down last year, and that was obviously a massive loss for them on both sides of the ball, because on top of being their, like, kind of number one, he's also a really good hitter, a very, very good hitter, and a true, like, impact defender in the outfield. So he goes down, and the fact that, like, Tony Eberlin, TCU commit, and really the other big one is Chase Milburn, uncommitted 2026. he had like a .7 ERA last year in 60 innings. Strike thrower, physical kid, competes mid to upper 80s, but a guy that just knows how to pitch. Like he'll flip you a breaking ball, he'll turn over a changeup. He's got a really tight cutter / slider type pitch in the upper 70s. Those two guys, Eberlin and Milburn, really stepped up and kind of carried them truly through the playoffs. Eberlin had a fantastic game against O'Fallon in the regional. He took a perfect game into the 7th inning, punched out like 12 dudes. Was really good. But if everything is equal, if everyone's healthy at full strength, I would have a hard time believing that Joe Chirotto wouldn't be the guy that gets the ball. But kind of building off that, like, so they played 2-game sets in conference, Tuesdays and Thursdays. One of those guys is not going to throw in a conference game as a starter, at least, right? Because you can only start one guy each game. And both like Milburn and Eberlin are all state caliber arms. Like if they were on 95% of the high school programs in the state, they're the number one. And so that kind of gives you a peek into the depth that Edwardsville has on the mound. And that's not even mentioning that's not mentioning Tyler Powell, who's mid to upper 80s, will scrape 90-91 with a hammer slider and a good changeup. It's not mentioning Baugh. It's not mentioning Dax Dunnell, who's going to John A. Logan, who's a lefty that's been up to 90. It's not mentioning Ethan Stewart, who's mid to upper 80s with a really good slider. It's not mentioning Eric Herman, who was up to 88 this fall with a hammer breaking ball. Like there are college level arms and good college level arms that may not throw 10 innings for them this year because that's how deep they are.
It's impressive what Funk does every year with that staff, crazy, especially. Man.
Well, Diego Solares, man, I can't thank you enough for jumping on with us. Absolutely outstanding stuff. I really hope parents listen to this and take something away from it. Thrilled you're doing what you're doing, man, and I can't wait to see you this spring. I'll actually probably see you on the 15th down there at Sports Barn. So I look forward to it, brother. Thanks for coming on.
Appreciate it, Diego. Thanks for having me.
Hey, take care, brother.
Take care.
See ya. All right, hang on just a second, Diego.